Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Forooshani and this is the second episode of our podcast about borderline personality disorder. In this episode, we discuss how to support someone who lives with borderline personality disorder or BPD. I'll try to clarify some of the most unfair stigmas and mistaken beliefs about people who live with BPD. Increasing our knowledge about facts and mistaken beliefs about a stigmatized mental condition is the first step of supporting people who live with that mental condition. So, what are the most common mistaken beliefs about BPD? One of the most common mistaken beliefs about people who live with BPD is that they are manipulative. Although this is true about some other personality disorders such as antisocial personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, this is a completely mistaken belief about people who live with BPD. It is important to consider that BPD is associated with significant impairments in some cognitive and emotional regulation capacities. For example, a person with BPD experiences a high level of dissociation, rumination, and impaired cognitive executive functions. Planned manipulation requires some advanced cognitive and emotional capacities. For example, for being successful in manipulating another person, you should be able to keep your emotions stable, stop showing your real emotions, or act in a very convincing way. Such tactics need a high level of cognitive and emotional capacities and skills. However, such cognitive and emotional capacities for manipulation are seriously impaired in people who live with BPD. Not only considering them as manipulative is a baseless stigma, but also even if they want to do so, they usually cannot do successful manipulation because they don't have the cognitive and emotional capacities that are needed for that. Remember that if they switch between idealizing and hating, love and anger, and all mood swings like that, these are all in reaction to emotional triggers that may not be easily noticeable to a neurotypical person. And also, these types of mood and behavioral shifts are happening automatically and impulsively, and it is completely out of their control, so it should not be considered as manipulation. People with BPD also may be accused of being manipulative because they often may talk about suicide, but in action they may not do that. This is important to know that anytime they talk about suicide, they are talking about it genuinely. However, the actual attempts to suicide may not be successful because of two reasons. First, because of the function of regular mood swings, they are very likely to change their mind at the very last moment and genuinely regret their decision of suicide. Also, even when they are determined to do that, they usually do it impulsively and not based on a thoughtful plan. And that's why there is a higher chance for them to survive a suicide attempt. So, if they talk regularly about suicide, it does not mean that they want to manipulate you. They are actually sharing their genuine feelings and thoughts with you, and it needs to be taken seriously at any single time. Another mistaken belief is that they are disconnected from reality, unpredictable in their reactions, and therefore dangerous. This is also a mistaken belief that is completely baseless. It is important to note that when you have BPD, all your extreme expressions of positive and negative emotions and sudden switches between emotions are in reaction to some real cues and triggers in your environment. If you spend enough time and attention on someone who lives with BPD, you can always find the subtle external triggers that have triggered such reactions in them. Let's use a metaphor to explain this point better. Imagine a person who is oversensitive to the smell of coffee. In a coffee shop, this person may express strong feelings of discomfort, while no one else would feel this way. So it does not mean that this person is disconnected from reality. This is just about the oversensitivity of this person to the smell of coffee. This is also the case for people who live with BPD. They are just emotionally oversensitive and therefore they are dealing with many more emotional triggers in their environment compared to a neurotypical person. For example, something that can cause you a slight feeling of frustration can cause a strong outburst of anger in a person with BPD. A friendly behavior that can cause you to slightly like someone can cause a person with BPD to idealize the other person as a hero in their life. A perceived rejection in your social life can disappoint you, but it can cause extreme pain for a person with BPD so that they may attempt suicide to stop the pain. All these extreme reactions are genuine but impulsive and automatic. None of them are planned and therefore they never can be considered as manipulation. Another common stigma is that they are dangerous and they plan to intentionally hurt people. This is a completely false belief that has resulted in a lot of experiences of social exclusion for people who live with BPD. This is true that individuals with BPD can experience high levels of anger when they are emotionally triggered, but they usually direct their anger and aggressive behaviors towards themselves, like through self-harm and suicide attempts, rather than doing something harmful to other people. If a criminal or abusive person reports a trauma history or BPD diagnosis, it does not mean that their childhood trauma or BPD diagnosis is the cause of their criminal or abusive behaviors. Remember this simple statistical fact that correlation does not imply causation. For example, if you find that most serial killers have brown hair, it does not mean that having brown hair is the cause of being a serial killer. And the last mistaken belief that I wanted to talk about in this episode is that people with BPD cannot recover from their symptoms or they cannot have a stable and healthy romantic and social life. This is also a completely false belief. People with BPD can fully recover from their symptoms and can have a normal personal, professional, romantic, and social life. However, it needs long-term specialized psychotherapy and, more importantly, a supportive and understanding social environment. The most important aspect of their healing process is perceiving unconditional love and validation. This is what they have never had in their life at a proper level. The recovery process involves gaining emotion regulation skills to keep their mood and behaviors more stable and also to increase internal sources of self-love and self-validation. However, even after recovery, they still will be highly emotionally sensitive persons, and this must be validated as their permanent neurodiversity. Therefore, their neurodiversity needs to be supported and understood by their environment even after their recovery.